Welcome to Behind the Wire, a podcast series from the trenches of reality, rescue, and humanitarianism, hosted by myself, Brooke Bryant, and Hells Goda. Welcome to our inaugural episode. Today, we dive into a gripping narrative that sheds light on the complexities of military justice and personal conviction. Our guest, United States Air Force Senior Airman Lance Castle, who finds himself embroiled in a whirlwind of controversy when he was labeled an insider threat and subjected to a harrowing 60-day pretrial confinement. Accused of 5 UCMJ charges, Lance weathered the storm of a court-martial, only to be acquitted of all accusations. What sparked this ordeal? It all began when Lance opted for a religious exemption from receiving the COVID shot. The viral spread of a compelling video then unveiled the treatment Lance endured at the hands of his fellow servicemen. Yet his steadfast refusal to comply was just the tip of the iceberg. Join us now as we unravel the layers of Lance's tumultuous journey in this episode. Let's dive in. I'd like to welcome the guy with probably the best name on the planet, United States Air Force active, Lance Castle. How are you doing today, Lance?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for having me today, both of you guys. Of
Thank you for being here.
course, yeah.
There's a pretty unique situation that's taken place in your life. My understanding is that this all started with COVID, you wanting to or opting out of getting the jab, so to speak. Let's start from there. We all know it was a mandate, it wasn't a law. Can you tell us a little bit, how does the military deal with a mandate in comparison to a law?
Yeah, so this mandate is mostly from the Secretary of the Air Force. It came down from the president, and he ordered the SecDef to order it to all the generals under him and the secretaries of the branches and all that. What they ran with is got to be ready at all times and capable. That's how they sold it, due to readiness. Well, a law would be if you break it, you could be charged with that and be facing punitive charges and go to court martial for that. For the mandate specifically, if you didn't even try to do a religious exemption and you just denied it, then you got kicked out of the Air Force at that time. So no charges like that, just discharged.
Just dishonorably discharged.
Yes,
Wow.
dishonorable.
Wow.
Did a lot of people go after the religious exemption that you're aware of?
Yeah, so my squadrons particularly had 350 members at the time. And I remember the people who refused it at first, they got us into a room, and I could say it's maybe 12 of us at that time on who was refusing it. And then they tried to have leadership talk to us on like the ramifications that will happen. Mostly you're not going to be able to stay in the military at this point, but more so they were trying to pep talk us into getting it, and most of the people there were young airmen. At that point, I'm not impressionable anymore. I know what's right and wrong. As those meetings progressed, like once every 2 months, the number started to diminish until there were 2 of us left. I think he might have gotten it. I think I'm the last man standing. Not that I even thought of it like that at the time, since I was dealing with so much persecution from my religious views.
When you say persecution against your religious views, because you were using that to not get the shot, or because you were religious in general?
The persecution specifically is what they were doing to me, like the unlawful actions due to me not wanting the vaccine.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly due to that, their persecution towards me.
What were their qualifications for the religious exemption? Did you have to show that you belonged to a church, a specific church, that then also was able to say, like, yes, this is what we believe?
Very good question. Yeah. So I had to go through 3 agencies, the first one being medical, and you just have to talk to your doctor on your views of why you don't want it. And then again, he tries to pep talk you into getting it and advising you to get it. And then after that, I had to talk to the chaplain at the time. And it's not necessarily like a negotiation or an interrogation. It's more so like an interview to see if you're sincere about it. It's not like he's asking you scripture or anything like that, but he's just asking why and trying to just get into the reasons of why. And then he gets to deem if it's sincere or not, in which he did deem that mine was sincere, because I had my pastor at the time too on 3-way on a phone call in the office. Well, I guess not 3-way, but he's on speakerphone on my phone as I talked to talked to the chaplain at the time. And then after that, it goes through legal, and they advise it, they didn't recommend it. And then I found out my court martial that my commander has a final say in adding his recommendation to it, on which in my court martial he has admitted that he did not approve me for that recommendation, again due to readiness, which makes no sense because at that point he was discharging me also. So not only is he stating that I can't deploy due to not getting the shot, but if he discharges me, I can't even like help out within the squadron anymore. So again, that's one of the many contradictions that he is at this point.
You were being discharged because you refused?
Yes.
I wish there was a way to listen to those secret conversations taking place behind closed doors, because obviously they're taking place and these people do their best to kind of stick together. I'm really shocked that the chaplain was biased on this. When I was in the military, the chaplain was completely unbiased. He was almost like a counselor when you walked in there. And he gave us good words of advice from scripture and things like that, but he certainly was never coercing us to do something. Whatever that something might be.
My chaplain that gave me the recommendation for the sincere religious accommodation exemption, no, he was biased towards me, and he was biased towards not getting it, but he ended up getting it himself. But he was he was in my corner on that. When things start to spiral out of control, I start to go to his office actually instead of work. They don't feel safe that I was at work eventually, and I don't feel safe being at work, so I choose to not report to work. But I tell them of my whereabouts, and I was going to the chaplain. It was just such a crazy time, and even though it was so long ago, I still remember it as if it was yesterday too.
What did you not saying you didn't feel safe showing up for work? Talk about that. Like, what feeling nervous about? What were you worried about?
So after I filed for my religious exemption, which was August 2021, and then it got denied March 2022, I got my LORs from my commander April and May recommending me for discharge in June 2022, and I would be discharged in October 2022. But then the Supreme Court froze the mandates at the time, pending, right? Like they need more time to decide what they're going to do. We jumped to 2023, and I find a document. I'll read to you guys. Like they messed up putting into my PIF, which is a personnel information file. And if you have a PIF on you, it's derogatory. It's defaming information. 9 times out of 10, like it's true information. Like you don't meet a lot of corrupt commanders like mine and the ones that I have met. In this paperwork, it literally says the supervisor from his previous work center believes he may be an insider threat and that he has been potentially radicalized by an anti-US government group in the wake of his refusal to take the COVID vaccine. In the wake of his refusal is synonymous with as a consequence of. It's crazy. And then after that, he literally says, I have instructed the M-flight personnel, and that is my squadron. There's different flights within the squadron. So just like split it into 4 categories. And there's one of them, the one that I worked under. And this is my flight commander stating that he instructed, which is also ordered, M-flight personnel not to meet with me one-on-one, to avoid all interactions with me, and under no circumstances to go to my house. And that is straight up segregation. And ostracism in the military is a form of harassment. That alone right there is terrible. And then there's 4 documents that they build on, and the 4th one is completely changed from that one. They take out COVID because they know at this time COVID needs to be removed, the verbiage. They take out everything I just read, the order to not have anyone talk to me. They take that out, but they leave this one in.
What is the anti-government group that they're talking about, that they were worried that you were a part of, or that they just deemed an anti-government group?
To me, it's ISIS, it's the jihad, it's Al-Qaeda. That's the thing. They're so vague. They're never specific on anything, but that's how they detail it. So anti-US government group is any group that's against the United States government. And I guess at the time, me refusing the vax is me being anti-US government is how they worded it.
And they expect you to trust them. Like, this is crazy. In the military, there was such a tight brotherhood. I hear some of these stories like your story and so many others now. They want you to trust them, and then these are the things that they do. Like, how do you have loyalty to people that talk behind your back, lie about you? In your case, attempt to make you out like you're part of some terrorist faction.
Yeah, and again, they try hiding this. And there's so many hands in the pot. They left this in my PIF accidentally. There's no way they meant to leave this in here, especially with the fourth document in this chain being completely the fourth one is what they presented to me to sign. And, because I lost my security clearance for this, I lost my access to the squadron, the entry codes and the restricted areas. So it's already happened. Like, this is literally how it happens. I guess this is like step two of what if I refuse the vax and then this happens, and obviously there's a lot of details in between. The big chunks would be that. And you're right. How can I trust that, especially now where no one's apologized? No one's still transparent. I won my court martial 7 months ago now. I'm still back under them. And it's so crazy. It's so crazy. It's ridiculous.
Is there any interaction that you've had with them to where you're able to see a difference in their personalities and the way they speak to you or treat you? Have you noticed anything in those realms?
Absolutely. Absolutely. After my court martial, which was in September, I took leave back in San Antonio and then I went back to work because they ordered me to go back to work in October. And my fiance at the time, or my fiance and I at the time, we thought that we would PCS, because that's what my lawyer was telling me. They're like, tell us the 10 bases that you would like to go to within the United States. Because there's like, it's just, it's asinine to think that I would have remained here, which I still am. Their demeanor has not changed. But what I did notice is they can't aggressively come at me like they were, especially now. The commander charged me with 5 charges, totaling 7 specifications. So out of those 7, 4 are made up. 4 are false and made up that I could go over with you guys too. So the 3 really is what we had to fight in court. And I got acquitted of everything, but mostly those 3 I got acquitted for extenuating circumstances, like the mitigating factors of why I did what I did, which was AWOL at the time and assault. They said I broke some guy's nose during that cell extraction, that video. They're trying to blame me that I broke some guy's nose when he separated my shoulder in that very video. That was my second charge that we had to fight. And the third one was willfully disobeying my commander's order to come back to work. And again, the mitigating factors that you guys will learn is just mind blowing. It's crazy that the amount of evidence that I have at this point on them. So these are my martial documents that they gave me. Literally just the court martial, and there's a lot of CDs in here of the audio files and everything like that. But this is 2023 alone, and it's so thick because there's a lot of witness testimonies in confinement. Like 19 cops that are stating crap about me. And again, yeah, just all the disciplinary actions and all the supporting evidence that they tried to do. They honestly tried their hardest to destroy me.
Just a few minutes ago, you brought up a video, and granted, there'll be some people that watch the video of this, which will stitch in that video so they can visually see the video you're referring to. And then there's some people that will be listening to this as well and might not have the ability to look at the video. Why don't you go ahead and explain really quick video? Now, I can tell you, this was brought to my attention by Hells. I was super blown away with what I saw. I've never seen the military do a cell extraction on their own kind, their own people. And then what I believe I saw is they removed you forcefully off of a bunk, threw you on the ground, and started pinning your limbs down. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there were 4 or 5 of them at the time. And luckily, there was someone there who did record it and was able to get that video out. Why don't you go over that really quick?
Absolutely, yeah. So it was actually 6 people that entered my room. The reason why the 7th person recorded it is because in the AFI, which is Air Force Instruction Codes, like it's like the Bible and the Air Force laws and regulations, it's mandatory for them to record a cell extraction. So if that occurred and no one recorded it, everyone would be, criminally held, I guess, at that point. So they had to have done that due to, again, it being in the regulations. It's so hard to talk about the cell extraction specifically because of all the things that led up to it. So the cell extraction, a lot of people have thought when it was first posted, I'm even trying to claim I refused the vaccine, right? Step 1. Step 2 was that video, which anyone that has common sense would know that there's a lot of things in between that would need to happen, like obviously an arrest. But if step 1 is me refusing the vaccine, I would say step 10 at this point was the cell extraction. Mm-hmm. Step 9 could be the arrest and what led to the arrest. And then 8 or step 2 through 8 could be all the details that we've kind of already discussed, like the insider threat. And we actually skipped over active shooter. So they actually deemed me an active shooter before my arrest, a couple days before. Like you'll start to see the spiral, of like the plot that they're setting me up with. So they deem me an active shooter or a potential active shooter. They have OSI investigate me, which I come clean. My name is not tied to terrorist organizations. I didn't make no purchases in any large amounts of ammunitions on any website or whatnot, you know. So not only did they deem me an active shooter early April, but then the next day someone else wrote on me that it was stated to her, I'm now targeting members within the squadron who have crossed me or who are in communication with leadership. So those, they could sell it. Like, we need to have this guy arrested.
So let me get this right. These things that are taking place, these additional steps, like you had mentioned, are an ongoing retaliation towards you for initially not complying with the COVID vaccination. Would you say that that's in the realm of possibility?
Oh, that is 110% the reason. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've even tried to like make up a scenario to where it's not that, and it can't be tied to it not being that due to what I just read you guys of what it stated, because it literally says COVID in that. Coincidentally enough, the mandate was lifted in January 15th, 2023 by the SecDef and the Secretary of the Air Force, Kendall. But at the same time, they put that statement out on me and they keep that, so that's why they had to change the verbiage, but they still kept their reasons. They're just now hiding the word COVID and it being from COVID. And they think they're so slick. You don't even have to be smart or a detective to, like, it was all right there for me to just look at and piece together, especially when I was in confinement.
When they said that you went AWOL,
Yeah.
but you had also said that you were checking in with them and you were letting them know, like, I don't feel safe reporting to you. You were going to your chaplain, you were checking in on them. Is that what they're talking about though during that time?
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not even AWOL, actually, it's desertion, which is worse than AWOL. And again, with how arrogant their charges were, to dare file desertion on me when desertion has to be over 30 days of not reporting to your place of duty, and the government are burdened to prove to the judge beyond a reasonable doubt by a preponderance of the evidence that you had intention to remain away permanently, on which they couldn't do. They charged me my desertion date from March 1st to April 10. And again, it's so crazy because I was on leave within that time, like from March 1st to March 10th. I was on approved leave. So for them to start the desertion charge on March 1st, when I was on leave on or about, like, the judge just saw so many red flags over and over and over and over. And it makes sense why they would do that, to try to get me over the 30 days so they could go with desertion instead of just AWOL, or up to 30 days,
Like, they're just so arrogant. I think that's where these people, like, when we do, when people finally do stand up for themselves and like prove themselves right, you realize that, like, these people are so arrogant and you're always going to find holes. So I just want to say good for you for like staying on top of it, doing your own research, being your own best advocate. I think that's incredible, because these guys, like, they get sloppy.
The whole reason they got sloppy too is so many hands were in the pot. They were banking on me accepting their plea bargains. I got over 4 plea bargains throughout being arrested, throughout my court and then to my court martial of, if you accept guilt for 3 of these charges, we'll drop these 2. But since you're now guilty of these 3 charges, all the ramifications will happen. I lose my GI Bill. I lose my potential retirement. I don't even get to honorably discharge. I get a dishonorable discharge. But you know what's crazy? One of the deals was I get to go to Laurel Ridge, which is a mental health treatment facility, if I get to accept that. And that was actually tempting, because at that point I thought about, why not just be done, be done with the military. Obviously I didn't do that. Thank goodness I didn't do that. And when I won my court martial, they report me to come back into work. And they dropped that. Like, there's no Laurel Ridge anymore. And then I stayed on that. I was like, how is this not even an offer anymore when you guys were already offering it if I would have accepted guilt on 3 charges, which is just crazy again, right? Like, and that's the thing. I denied the first one in jail. The first one that my commander offered me on was through my lawyer, and it was 30 days already in jail, like the first month. And she told me that it's awkward and rare that a commander would offer it 30 days in, that it's usually immediately, to get you out of there. But he waited 30 days, and that tells me he's trying to show me who's boss. He's trying to be dominant, and make me sweat it out. And I actually asked her, my lawyer at the time, if I accept this, how long until I get out? Can it be tonight? And she said it might take 2 weeks or so. And then I was like, then there's no way I'm doing that. If my commander would have had it for that night, I get released, that would have been tempting. And if I would have accepted, I would have regretted that till this day, you know.
It's crazy, and I always have this tendency to go back into my younger life because things were so radically different. Like I remember a time where you'd just go into a room and you'd get a really nice apology and a pat on the back and you'd shake hands and everything was good and that worked. But the self-entitlement nowadays, the narcissism, the arrogance,
Oh,
nobody's going to back down, nobody's going to apologize, oh, we'll just grind him into the wall.
yeah.
It's like the days of compassion and kindness are just being tossed out the window and being replaced again with the arrogance and the narcissism and the self-entitlement of society. This really makes me sad to hear this because what I'm hearing from you is not the military that I went through. This is a whole new breed of military, a whole new level of stupid too, in regards to the people that are instructing other people in there. I don't want to not make that point. There's a lot of stupidity interwoven into this as well, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it really is the arrogance because they get away with it so often. I mean, Lance, even you said yourself, like it was tempting. I was sick of it. I wanted to be done with it. And it
Yeah.
was tempting. And I think that they more likely than not do get away with it until you have someone who's just like, no, this is BS. I'm not accepting this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how's this affected your personal life, your family, your fiance, and things like that?
Yeah, it definitely has affected it. Absolutely. But it's a lesser of the two evils. Again, if I would have accepted a plea bargain, probably would be contemplating suicide. I don't even know how I would even continue living knowing I gave up on myself like that, you know, like if I did do that, obviously, and that would suck. That would really be so bad. But as of now, it's on and off. I get really angry at times. I'm always on this. I'm always listening to their audio recordings. I'm always piecing together things. I got to be even more detailed now. So I need to be able to explain this thoroughly, hit the hard stuff like we mentioned earlier. And if they have the questions, then we could go into the details. But I'm even having to get into this even more so now. And yeah, and this is over 2 years up to this point. So it tremendously has impacted my mental health, my physical health, because a lot of people might not even know that cell extraction. I sustained 2 tears in my rotator cuff. I think I showed you guys last time, and 1 tear in my MCL. Yeah, it's crazy. It's so bad. I already had surgery for it, my shoulder on April 11th and surgery on February 1st of this year for my knee. I'm trying to get all those surgeries out of the way, and then I get time off. I don't have to go to work right now. I'm on convalescent leave. So it has impacted it tremendously. They definitely did this to the correct person. They don't know that they did it to the correct person, but I will die before I let this slide. And there's about over 25 to 30 people complicit from different agencies, from my leadership to the leadership above them, which is called the group leadership, the mental health clinic, who all were complicit in on this too, telling the commander that I'm provider shopping and trying to find a PTSD diagnosis off base.
What is provider shopping?
I was trying to do everything I needed to do to get help. I've always had a hunch back then. Once I bring up COVID, if I tell anybody, I feel I'm being persecuted against or being harassed due to not receiving the vaccine, back then it was like 100% where a wall, the proverbial wall is put up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Like I'm a right wing nut at that point, and it's all within my head. So all these mental health people at the clinic, who their jobs are to really differentiate who's sincere and who's not, and they deemed that I was not, and they said I have anxiety, and they told me to go back to work when I told them all of my concerns, that my supervisor is gaslighting me. At the time, I couldn't prove it on paper, but I knew he was. They all pretty much dismissed my concerns all the way to the top, all the way until it hits the top, which is the flight commander of mental health. She's a psychiatrist at the time. She's separated since, but the new one that took over, even she has a point of contention as well. Again, I need to talk about this as if they're watching me or going to watch this. So again, I can prove everything, clearly with all the documents that I have, with all the testimonies from court, that they're accusing me of provider shopping. That's even in their own clinical notes. At a certain point, I put my foot down and I'm like, I'm done with the mental health clinic here on this base. And I go off base. And I do tell my first sergeant that I'm going to do that. And I'll pay whatever I need to get seen off base. because I don't trust the on-base mental health providers because they're all telling me to go back to work in an environment that I'm telling them I have fear for my life due to my high blood pressure at the time being in the 200s. And then I'm at risk of a sudden cardiac arrest or a stroke. Just how my supervisor used to gaslight me. And they're just like, they're literally discrediting my concerns. And not only that, like my commander calls in and he asks, is he really facing stuff? Like, is his concerns genuine? And they tell him that there's no reason for me not to go back to work. So instead of him using his own due diligence and like maybe the mental health could be wrong for once, he automatically assumes I'm lying. He says in court that I have no credibility when before this squadron I had no paperwork. But after the court martial, he tells my therapist I've had a binder of paperwork before even coming to his squadron. So stuff like that I could easily discredit him on. So like I said, there's multiple agencies that are guilty that will be held accountable through the legal system.
What's really crazy is this is over a vaccination. If you were to ask me 20 years ago if I ever thought that I would see a forced vaccination where people went complete, utter crazy over, like we just saw in COVID, I would laugh at them and say, absolutely not. Just the fact that there are so many problems that have been created and that are being created by a vaccine is mind-blowing to me. At what point have we gotten to as human beings to where we fight and kill other people over a vaccine? Like, that's nuts to me. My brain can't make sense of it. It just can't.
You just haven't been living in the conspiracy world, because I'll tell you what, people have been saying this for decades, right? Wow. People have been saying like they have like foreshadowed this, but it is wild. What's crazy to me, but we see this with all different types of situations and crises that we have, is that we know now that the shot was killing people. We know now that it was paralyzing people. We know now that it was making people really, really sick. Like, we know they've now deemed this virus like a common virus, just a common virus. And the level of hate and anger, taking children off like transplant lists, your family, your friends, like cutting you off, this, going to the Supreme Court, all kinds of stuff. Like, people who didn't take the shot weren't even going to be able to work, you know what I mean, in any capacity in this country. I feel like I want there to be grace. I always want to be a gracious person, but like, are we going to talk about that? Like, are we going to address the fact that this is where we are? We're just going to ignore like how psychotic everyone was. And then Lance, like your situation, like, how is this not going to be like a point that's brought up? I imagine that an attorney could use that, but overall, it's probably not going to be, the gotcha point in court. But it blows my mind that your career, your character, everything could be put on the line for something that we know now was so unnecessary. You could have literally been saving your life by not taking that shot. That's something we know. You're a young man. This was affecting, young men around your age more than anyone. So it really blows my mind. And it's not like, I know you don't want people to feel sorry for you, but like, that is a heavy burden that you're carrying. And I just applaud you 1,000 times. I could go blue in my face for like carrying that, because a lot of people would have said, okay, I just want to be done with this, and felt, like they were just in a corner by themselves.
I want to read to you just a quick little paragraph of the LOR that my commander gave me for refusing his order. Okay. On March 7th, you were issued an order to receive the COVID vaccine. You have failed to comply with that order. You are hereby reprimanded. The most fundamental duty of every service member is to follow the orders of those appointed over them. The military cannot function when its members pick and choose what order they will follow. Rather than comply with the order to receive your first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, you choose not to receive the vaccine despite being provided ample opportunity to do so. Your choice is to not follow this order. Your choice to not follow this order possesses a threat to unit readiness. Further refusal to become fully vaccinated against COVID-19 will not be tolerated and may result in more severe administrative action or disciplinary action under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And again, that's like the very first stuff that was happening. We just went all the way back, and then all the other stuff came after that. But that alone right there telling me I can't choose what orders I can and can't follow. I could absolutely not abide by unlawful orders, which I knew at the time that was. And he didn't even state lawful order. But it's so funny because after this, he'll start stating lawful order. You still continuously choose to defy my lawful orders, blah blah blah. Like he'll start to say lawful when I clearly told him these are unlawful orders, you know. And again, like we could talk for 5 hours on this subject of all the evidence I have. My commander is so guilty in everything he's done. But as of right now, nothing has happened to him actually. I emailed the wing commander who is above the group commander. He's a wing slash base commander, the dude in charge of the entire base. And that's something that no one ever hears of. Like that's like someone emailing the president, you know, and the president responding back hypothetically. He emailed me back a couple days later saying that he will have a meeting with the two commanders that were involved in this, but I haven't heard from him since, and I will stay on him to see what good came out of that. And I will also be emailing his boss, which is a lieutenant general, who's a AFSOC commander, which means he's a commander of multiple bases. And I'll just keep going all the way to the top. I can't see them arresting me for trying to get accountability here, you know, especially from unlawful actions, proven now unlawful actions. Me winning my court martial has given me so much leverage to their credibility at this point. And either I do what I'm doing and let this be known that there are tyrants out there, you know, that won't back down, or the only other option is I go live my life with my full acquittal and don't get accountability of what they did, you know, and that's definitely not me, because if I was that person to just go live my life and drop it, I would be that person to accept the plea bargains that they tried giving me in jail too, so I could get out earlier, you know. So the very, very worst possibility is my death. And that's why I feel the urgency now of needing to do podcasts, you know, answer people's questions, post everything publicly while redacting names. If they go that far to have me executed, you know, the fact that I'm even thinking that that's a possibility, because every time I drive on base, I think I'm going to be arrested. All the security forces and cops on base hate me. They despise me. And I hear that from friends who are friends with them that are friends with me telling me this, you know, that have proof and audio recordings too. So all the cops on base hate me for my full acquittal. How does that make sense? When it's like they want me to be guilty. They wanted me to be guilty when I wasn't. That is just evil to the core. So I definitely don't feel safe on that base. But still, to this day, no one has listened on that base, like leadership wise. This is so egregious. I keep saying that. This is so crazy. You know, I have the willpower and the determination to see this through, you know, even if it means I die. And I've already accepted that. And I would rather go that way and go out that way than to just continue on and let them get away with what they did. Because the captain who was involved, he's a flight commander. He could be a commander someday. And he's only like 27 himself, like really young. If he's already doing this at 27 as a captain,
Yeah.
if he's a colonel, holy crap, man. If he's a general someday, because he knows how to play the game, right? But I can't let that happen. Same with my supervisor, who's a master sergeant. If he's a chief master sergeant someday of the Air Force, like these get like what? There's no way. At least not on my watch, you know.
God willing that looks clear to whoever you take it to next, and that you're just protected and you get accountability and you get justice.
And my commander who filed those charges against me, that the whole court martial that entailed after that had to have been over $100,000 court martial, obviously, you know, to put it all together, to pay all the people that were a part of it, to fly people back actually that have left and needed to come back for testimonies. He just gets to waste taxpayers' money and he just gets no accountability. Like, that's so crazy. These guys are so sanctimonious in all they do, and they state Air Force core values and integrity first, service before self, excellence in all we do, when they're nowhere near what they preach. My commander does a commander's call once a month, I believe. And it's all that, you know, like watch out for your wingman, watch out for signs of concern so it doesn't lead to suicide. Like it's all fake. It's all phony. I hate fake, corrupt people like that. And I mean, they're definitely forgivable. Like if they have true sorrow and contrition and repent for their actions. But until I see that, how can I even forgive them? And I get forgiving someone for yourself, so you're not burdened with that hate. but they don't want to be forgiven. Like, it's not personal at this point. It's more so, like I stated earlier, it's accountability.
That's right. Even
Yeah.
God will correct us, you know? God who forgives us and loves us will correct us, but like accountability is so important. Making things
Absolutely.
right is so important. Yeah.
I can't believe these are people that you're supposed to be in the trenches with, worst case scenario, fighting a war with, believing in, trusting in, giving your loyal to, and vice versa. And this is the way they're treating you. You wouldn't see me in the trenches with these guys at all. And if you did, they probably wouldn't be
Yeah.
in the trench much longer than that.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly how I feel. Exactly how I feel. I want nothing to do with the government or the Air Force anymore, but I have a year left. I have like an honorable discharge if I were to get out. Everything that has happened is like erased on paper as if like it's supposed to be erased from my mind. Like, they're even my new first sergeant, he's like, he told me on a text message that he says it looks like what I'm doing is just vengeance. Like, I'm coming for revenge. For people like that to not even understand how the feelings of how that could be left in someone of what they did, it's arrogant. Like you said, it's narcissist. It's evil. It's straight evil. I don't know what other words to use but that.
I'm thoroughly convinced a lot of these people who will probably never at any point admit it, that are mad at people that didn't get the vaccine, it really boils down to misery loves company. It's interesting how they usher in equality years earlier. You bring in this level of equality that people start buying into, where they think that everyone should have and be treated the same exact way. And then they throw the vaccine on you, and it's like, well, the people that didn't get it, let's just create our hate for those people that weren't equal in what we did. I believe it's misery loves company. Hey, I got the vaccine, so you should have to take it. Whether it's killing half the nation or not, you should still have to take it because I had to take it. It's like people aren't growing up anymore. That's like childish mentality. You know? My point is the mentality seems to be digressing and the intellect digressing back into a childlike state for people, and they're not growing up anymore. And the decisions they make are based upon the decisions a child would make, certainly not a responsible adult,
Yeah.
especially in, the case that you're dealing with right now.
So then when they find someone like you, Lance, that isn't, becoming this childlike, okay, tell me what to do. What are we doing type thing? Like they don't know how to deal with it. And like you said, they get angry and it's like an authority thing. It's a power trip. It's how, like calling you out, make sure. I mean, the fact that they had these like council meetings, like you said, there was like 12 of us who hadn't, gotten the shot. And then, I mean, I would call those intimidation meetings. 100%. That, I mean, to put you in a room isolate you with a group of other people and let you know all these bad things that are going to come to you if you don't comply. That's an intimidation meeting, that's breaking you down. And the fact that they, in the end, you don't know what happened to the others, whether their religious exemption was, approved or whatever it is. But in the end, this one individual, we got all of them, but we can't get him. That has got to have evil men who lack integrity fuming 100%.
That's mob
Um,
mentality, literally mob mentality.
I love that you brought that up. After that COVID mandate came out in August 2021, and I did my religious exemption, they moved me completely squadrons. Like, they got rid of me into a new squadron, which at first I had issues with because the commander needs to do his report back then on how many people were vaccinated. And the commanders that have 100% vaccinated status look so much better than the commander of his squadron that has 98.7 or 99.1. If he's not 100%, back then it looks like to the higher ups, this commander can't get his or can't influence his members or he can't inspire his members to get vaccinated. But they moved me, I would believe, to get their number to 100%. So I go to this new squadron in Cannon Air Force Base, and then I'm there for 3 months, and I had orders to there. So it's not no temporary loan like they start to state later when they move me back. But the commander of this new squadron finds out that I'm not vaccinated. So he asks the old commander who moved me, who is my current commander, who's the one who's complicit, if he could have me back due to not being vaccinated. And I have that in my lawyer's notes that when she interviewed him as for my preparation for the court martial. That's crazy because he told my therapist and many other people that I had disciplinary actions at that squadron and that I was giving out gear within the supply warehouse to people and selling gear. And I'm starting to hear too. And I was not going to work there too. Like they're just making stuff up at this point with no proof still. Again, like my commander's caught lying. And so they moved me back so that now the old commander can have his 100%. They don't want someone who's not vaccinated. And that was the start of it. That was the start of it too. So again, we just went back to the beginning because of what you said. It reminded me of that. When that was happening too, a lot of people told me, you've gotten the flu shot before, you've gotten anthrax when you went on your deployment, blah, blah. It's just another shot. Why this shot? Because it's mRNA. The COVID shot didn't have live virus in it. So your immune system would recover and build immunity off of that, like the flu shot at the time had. So it's not even a vaccine.
Yeah.
But the fact
No,
that
they've
it's called
changed the definition of a vaccine because of the mRNA. And in fact, the mRNA technology has been around for decades and decades, and they haven't been able to push it forward. And they use this emergency declaration to get it out on the market. And the reason they haven't been able to is because it's failed, because it's been deadly, because it's caused all kinds of issues. It's so wild to me that you can tell people that and they think you're a conspiracy theorist when it's just like, I mean, they're research papers, decades and decades of research papers. And for someone to say, hey, I actually am going to choose to just get COVID if I get COVID, you know what I mean? As opposed to like taking literally an experimental shot is just it's so wild. What was the typical response you would receive when you would tell people like, hey, this is technology, that this mRNA that I'm not willing to put into my body?
They don't even listen. They're zombies. They're like, it goes right over their head. They don't even want to learn, because they already got it. They don't want to learn that there could be possible complications in the future for them. So it's easier to not know what they've done, to live in bliss.
Yeah.
I guess pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Also, too, the fact that he gave me the order to get the vaccine, I want to tell you guys why it was so unlawful. It's because he says, I order you to receive an initial dose of a COVID-19 vaccine with full licensure approval from the FDA. And as we all know, that's only specific to certain lot numbers, BLA lot numbers that were community that weren't available in the United States or in the military, the Johnson & Johnson one and all the other crap, like those were EUAs, obviously. Nobody can order you to receive an emergency use authorization, trial, experimental vaccine. It's just going to get even more crazy. All the cases that are going to come out, all of other people that are going to come out. I've seen some comments when that video was posted, like, why is Lance coming out now, a year later?
You've been going through it this whole time.
I actually was CC'd in an email from a first sergeant on base. It's like a Freudian slip. And it's so weird because he says it was to all the first sergeants on base. And then I'm accidentally CC'd in it, right? Like it was an accident. This guy says, pay attention to paragraph 3 where it says with full licensure approval from the FDA. That's the part of the letter that the United States Air Force messed up, as it refers to FDA approved community and some very specific lot numbers of the Pfizer that have never been available at Cannon Air Force Base. And then he says, I recommend changing the verbiage to with approval from the FDA. That way it covers the EUA vaccines as well. So this guy is in trouble. Once this was a year ago and I still haven't filed on him because he's like a lower level of all the other people I'm dealing with. But this guy's a leader. I hate that word now, within the base of trying to teach commanders and other people how to condone illegal actions and change the verbiage to their benefit. It's ridiculous.
Do you have anything online that people can go to help kind of support your cause or anything like that you want to share?
Those people that get to hear this that are interested, I would say please become more interested and help fight the cause, of this crazy authoritarianism government that we're in, really.
That doesn't seem to be getting any better either, might I add. Every single day I wake up, I'm like, what new has happened,
Yeah, in the Bible, which I'm still reading in Revelations, it talks about the end of times. The world is going to become worse. So it's never going to get better. Is how it's supposed to go, it sucks. But that's when Jesus is supposed to come back, when it's at the pinnacle of its absolute, like at the peak of evil corruption. So yeah, according to the Bible, it's not gonna get better. It's just gonna continuously get more corrupt, more evil, as we are seeing, right? So
yeah.
So,
Well, look, we thank you for being on the Behind the Wire podcast and sharing your story with us and everybody else out there. And we do appreciate it. And Lance, thank you for standing up for yourself and being your word and having the integrity, to push through all this. There's not a lot of people that can do that. As you pointed out, you were one of, if not the last, one of the last two that were left with defending your right for what you believe is right for yourself. So that's highly admirable, especially in the world that we live in today. So congratulations on that. And
thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
Lance, thank you so much.
All right.
I'm
Yeah.
praying for that accountability to come through strong for you, praying for your family, and we just really appreciate you being on the podcast.
yes.
Thank you for having me again. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys' time for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lance. And we'll check in with you again in a few months and we'll kind of see how things are going,
Okay.
if it works out for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much again, you too. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Wire, a podcast series from the trenches of reality, rescue, and humanitarianism, hosted by Burke Bryant and Hells Goda. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date with the new episodes being released. You can find us on Instagram at Behind the Wire Podcast and YouTube at Behind the Wire Podcast. Until next time.